A dream is a wish your heart makes. And then we do something about it, because we're witches. Hello, moon babies, it's Molly. It's really good to be here with you today. I am super jazzed to talk about this week's topic, which is dream boards. Scary, good dream boards that get shit done. One of you had responded to my latest altar tour video and asking about my collection of dream board images and what I had done to be successful in the past. And about 500 words into this YouTube comment, I decided that it really warranted its own video. It really warranted its own discussion. So that's what we're gonna do today. So what is a dream board or a vision board? And what that is a collection of images that are intended to help us manifest things. Because we love to manifest things, don't we? So, it works on the principle of sympathetic magic. So the idea that like attracts like. We're using this as a magnet. We're using this as a signpost to the universe. So I've been using dream boards as a system for 7 or 8 years at this point. And I'll be honest, in the beginning, they were your great grandma's dream board. They felt more like a Girl Scout camp exercise and not really a magical working that had any real impact on my life. So I've developed some ideas that you might want to try to make this more impactful, to make this more meaningful, and to make it work. So when I had initially started making dream boards, they were sort of compact. They were relatively small. I kept them sort of private, like they would get tucked into a purse or a journal or something like that. And nothing happened. They were not effective. Nothing interesting occurred. None of said manifesting happened. So if you are also in this situation, I'm hoping that maybe we can bust through some of that stuff today and go through some tips and tricks and techniques and get your vision boarding up a notch and working for you. So getting started, why would we want to have a dream board or a vision board? There's a couple reasons. It can help us focus on what it is that we want. It can help us be open to receiving. It can serve as inspiration. As stated before, it can help us manifest things in the real world, in our 3D lives. It can also help us be conscious of synchronicities, of signposts that are being shown to us. And what's more fun than that? So, the first step, choosing images. How do we choose images? They can be of things that you might want. They also don't have to be things at all. They might be images of destinations. They might be images of things that you want to feel, things that you want to experience, a mood that you want to create, a movement that you want to create. A lot of people use magazine imagery. I like magazine imagery because it tends to be accessible. It's practically free. I pilfer magazines from my break room at work after everyone's done with them. So magazine images can work, but if glossy pictures out of Better Homes and Gardens doesn't speak to anything that you want to create in your reality, don't use them. Don't use them. You can use covers of romance novels. You could use tarot imagery or other imagery that you like. Use your Pinterest. For the love of Pete, we spend hours cultivating those things and curating them. Use them as a bank. Use that stuff. And feel free as well to use images of yourself. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. But this is a picture that some of you might have seen before. This is me when I'm about 8 years old. And it's an image that I'm using to work on inner child work. So feel free to use pictures of yourself in your vision boards as well. So I would also really encourage you to use images that are about things that you actually want, not things that you think you should have. So if I were to create a dream board around luxury, I'm not going to include pictures of fancy cars. I don't have a driver's license. A fancy car means nothing to me. But a full refrigerator or a basket of fruit that I just bought from my organic farmer's market, that makes me feel like a rich bitch, okay? So use images that work for you. So let's talk about some ways that we can soup this up. How do we make this a magical practice? I've got a couple of ideas for you. The first is to create your board, or however you're choosing to interpret your board, in sacred space. So anything that you would do at any other point in time where you are doing magical workings, and that might mean candles or incenses, casting a circle, working in a particular space that you have, make it there. That's going to supercharge it, right? We can consider the day of the week. So depending on what your board is about, think about the correspondences for the day of the week. All of that stuff has correspondences and it's fun to use. You may wish to consider the phase of the moon while you are making these things. I like to create them either waxing or full. Tends to work well for me. Or new moon, dark moon, we're making a seed, we're creating things. So consider, depending on what it is that you want and what you're trying to achieve, you may wish to consider a moon phase. You may wish to include a personal sigil in the creation of your board. And a sigil, we're not going to get into sigil magic in this particular video because people have written thousands and thousands of pages on creating sigil magic, but I will include a link to some resources if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. But you may wish in your board to, underneath on the surface that you're working on, include your personal sigil and then build on top of it, or mark it with your personal sigil after you have completed it to activate your board. You may wish to charge your images before you get to board creation. So I like to soup mine up in a little box, and all this was just a candy tin that I bought from a Goodwill, and I had to stick some bedazzles on it because I can't leave well enough alone. But you don't need to buy a box to charge your images on your altar. You can use, like I said, an old candy box. Use an envelope. That is sufficient. But the idea that you are putting intention into the images before they even make it to your board could prove to have interesting effects. If you are going to use a box or container, you may also wish to charge your images with a physical object, a fetish that means something to you. You may wish to include a crystal that you're charging it with, depending on if you're trying to use it to, manifest, let's say, financial gain, things like that. You may wish to hit up your ancestors. Use a little graveyard dirt in here. Whatever your system is, customize it to fit that. Let us not forget as well the importance of color magics. So with whatever it is that you are trying to create and pull into your reality, think about your color correspondences. A monochromatic dream board could be very, very impactful. Something to consider. Composition may also be something that you wish to consider. Does your dream board need to be a rectangle? Would it make more sense with what you are trying to draw in to make it circular? Or in the shape of a triangle? Or anything else? You may also wish to, in the placement of your images, does what's placed in the center help radiate out, considering a target shape when you are creating them? Experiment. See what works for you. You may also wish to activate your board in some way. So with a word or a symbol that you draw on it, perhaps you work on this board listening to a particular song, and every time you listen to that song, you are feeding your board. It could be really fun to integrate. Using a word, as I mentioned before, can also be super impactful. A word that you include in other places in your home or in your wallet, or something that you say every day as part of your affirmations. Consider it. I would also highly recommend path working with your board. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with what path working is, this is an exercise that is most often used when studying tarot, but has applications in other places. But the idea is that you would meditate and bring yourself into the space and the story of the card. You can also meditate and bring yourself into the space and story of your board as a way to cement that and explore it and make it real for you. So what I want to emphasize with you here before we move on is that consider creating your board with the same level of detail and respect that you would give to any other magical working. That same complexity, that same cocktail of energies that you're putting together. We're shooting for layers, to create layers, beautiful layers, like an oil painting. I got distracted thinking about painting for a minute there. So let's talk about alternate ideas. Let's talk about ways to really soup this up. So you may wish to use your board as a base for a crystal grid. So if you're going to do that and amp it up with crystals, I would, in my personal experience, recommend using amplifier crystals. So even if you don't have, a big fancy smancy generator the size of your fist, that's okay. I would recommend quartz or calcite as natural amplifiers, but any crystal will do. Use what you like. Use what works for you. You may also wish to consider incorporating sacred geometry. So this is a magazine image that I've made into this little tetrahedron shape here, and you could use this as a generator for a grid as well. You may wish to use one image to do this. You could also include images on each side. And take into consideration the shape that you use with what you are attempting to accomplish. I also really love the idea of seeing groupings of images of shapes this way. You could create a grid if you so chose, just using the shapes. Something to consider. Let's see here. Another idea I have for you to move beyond the board, if you wish, is to create a mobile of images. And I like this idea because of the movement, and I think it would be amazing to really fill this up. Like, can you imagine a chandelier of all of the beautiful things that you want to bring into your life, and every time you walk past it, it moves, and you bring energy to that? This might also be something interesting to put above the bed, for it to be the first and last thing that you see when you wake up and before you drift off to dreamland. Something to consider. What else do we have? You may wish to explore other surfaces to work with. I love the idea of perhaps decoupaging or shellacking images to the inside of a salad bowl that you thrift and filling that up with water and zapping it up with the full moon and then watching the images be magnified by the water. Psychological effect there, I think, would be incredibly impactful. I'm also exploring right now the idea of putting dream boards over my speakers and using music to activate them. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, you may wish to create a spell bottle with your images. And this is one of my personal images. I hope you can see her in there. It's the Queen of Swords on the inside. And all I've done here is laminated an image with boxing tape, just using layer after layer after layer of boxing tape to protect the images. It's full of baby oil. And this is just a little jar. I believe there were maraschino cherries in this at some point that I've smexed up, because this is going to relate to my word of the year this year. But you can include lots of little images in here, or lots of little words, and I love the idea of activating it by shaking it up and rocking that little universe in there every time I want to meditate on what I'm trying to draw in. So, where to put this thing? So you've made it and it's awesome. What do we do with it now? I found that it's intrinsic to put your dream board, in whatever fashion that you choose to make it, in a space that you are going to see over and over and over again. So places like your refrigerator door, maybe next to your bathroom mirror, above your bed, depending on how you choose to make it. Think of a place that you will visit it often. I have also seen beautiful vision boards included as the backdrop to an altar space. Not only beautiful, but incredibly functional. And I love that idea. And if your altar is someplace that you're visiting on the regular, that might be a space that you would consider. So let's talk about a couple final tips to help round this out for you. So my first tip is, when you are picking your images and you are creating your dream board, go for the candy store effect. And what I mean by that is, when you see your board, your eyes should be like saucers and you should be salivating. It should bring you so much energy and so much joy in what it is that you are making. So as I said before, I feel like it bears repeating. Choose images that really speak to you. Choose images that are about what you truly desire and not about what you think you're supposed to want. So your dream board does not have to be necessarily about getting more things. You know, it might be about, like, I just wish I had more sexy time in my life. Use that. Do it. I also firmly believe that when we are attempting any sort of manifesting work, that it is not cheating by any means to take steps to make sure it happens. Whether this is a to-do list, or goal setting, or writing notes to yourself in your planner, or scripting, use your tools. It's not cheating to help it. You have to meet the universe halfway. When we meet the universe halfway is when we make some really intense, cool, scary magic. So, with that, I hope this is helpful to you in your dream boarding journeys. I would love, love, love to hear about your tips, tricks, techniques, and any success stories that you have with creating your dream boards. I would love to know as well if you end up using any of these ideas. Feel free to hit me up on Facebook, post a picture, show the group, or make a video response. I would love to see it. So thank you so much for joining me today. I had so much fun talking to you about this, and we will talk again very, very soon. Do you keep it weird, make magic, and be well. Bye-bye.